in studio here, and I've been patient all along, Dr. Bogus. It's now June 1st. The fish have got to be out there. People have to be catching fish, and that water has to be clearing up. Am I right on any of those?
Not exactly, but before we do that, I wanted to mention the passing of Father Don from St. Mildred's Church last week.
Yeah.
I was a member of, and I knew him for about 20 years worth. And as I put in the obituary here, unparalleled grace, love, and dedication. He was all that.
He was
probably the best homilist or sermon giver that I ever saw.
Mm-hmm.
In 5 minutes, he could get your attention, tell you something that you remembered, and make it worthwhile. So I just wanted to mention he's greatly missed.
Wow, that's synonymous with St. Mildred's Church in Swansboro and part of the community.
For 20 years.
Exactly. So. Yeah. When you said St. Mildred's, you said Father Don. So it was
absolutely.
synonymous.
He was Father Don knew Dr. Bogus. We met and talked any number of times. So he was really a special guy.
Was he a fisherman?
No, but he understood Dr. Bogus as a fisherman.
Maybe he said a prayer or two for you when you went out.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. If I asked, he would have, for sure.
Very good.
But the fishing, I measured over this past month. We're now June 1st. I measured over 13 inches of rain in May, and a lot of that came towards the end of May. We had a little bit early in May, but almost all that the last couple of weeks of May.
In just a couple of days.
And most of it within a week's span.
Yeah.
And it is the impact that has on not only you always expect the dark, the tannins that run off from the decaying vegetation, but the amount of suspended solids, the silt that's in the Sound right now is more than I remember from other times where we've had heavy rains, even from Florence or Denison Floyd back in '99, and it really is very. I fish a lot around the Bogue Inlet, around the Point and Emerald Isle, and that water, especially on that outgoing tide, is just amazing.
Yeah, dark.
It is very dark, very dirty, and so you'd like to try to get that. After the tide turns, you get that cleaner ocean water come pushing that back in. That being the case, we're having a really, really good year for Spanish mackerel. They finally were catching some around the Point and Emerald Isle. I fished a couple of days last week around the Point. One of the days I didn't see anything but bait, and the day before that there were both blues and Spanish. A lot of the baits right now that are running along the beach are really tiny little flat-bodied guys, some kind of one of the shad fish. They're only, half or 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch long. And that's what the blues and the Spanish are porking up on.
Yeah.
And these fish are run right along the bank and right along the surf line. So there were a couple of people fishing one of the days I was down there that couldn't cast more than about 20 feet. And they were doing it sidearm and behind the back and all kinds of weird approaches to trying to cast. But the point was they didn't have to go farther than that.
Yeah, you were out there.
When a bait ball of those little shad would come by, the blues and the Spanish were just busting it right on the beach, and so you could catch them right along there. I know there were. Interestingly, I'm hoping this is going to be a good week. A year ago, this first week in June, we killed the drum. Every day we got red drum there. And either me or my friend Bill or both of us, every day we caught drum. And then they were gone.
They just drop off the table.
They're solid for 1 week.
Yeah.
Right along a very nice shoreline, which is still there, that extends from the inlet on out probably a half a mile or more. And that's a nice structure to fish.
Well, what would you advise young anglers or people just down here and they're listening to the show, when you see those bait balls out there, what's the best type of artificial, or do you go with live bait when in that situation?
Easiest thing is to use the artificial. On the ncoif.com, I posted a few weeks back when we were talking about the bonito and that sort of the tunas for the rest of us.
Yeah.
I posted a picture of on about a dozen lures.
Lures, right? Remember that.
If you go back to that, all those work great for not only the false albacore, the bluefish, the bonito, They also work great for Spanish
Spanish,
mackerel.
yeah.
And so they're all eating very similar baits, either the silver size or these little shads. And there was one person complaining that the fish are busting all around him, and he, what bait should he use? They weren't eating anything he was throwing. One of the things that you need to remember about those fish is they are very size focused, frequently very size focused. If they're looking at eating little tiny larvae in the water,
Yeah.
and you have something bigger than a little piece of smudge of dirt, they won't eat it. If they're going after small glass minnows or something like that, that's what you have to do. So what you do is downsize.
To what the fish in the ball
Right.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
usually it's not usually going up in size, but usually
Interesting.
if they're not hitting, it's because it's too big.
Yeah.
And that's not in their focus right now. So, the other thing that's come in with some. Oh, by the way, there was still some Atlantic bonita out there, and the water's in the mid 70s. They normally, by the time we get near June or even halfway through May, usually the bonita are back north.
They're adios. They're gone.
Usually absolutely adios.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's come in with the wind and the stuff that we've had, the sargassum weed is all over the beach, and whatever the other thing that blew in with the Portuguese man of war.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Which, by the way, are not jellyfish. They are their own classification. They are actually a conglomeration of several animals that come together to make that critter. and I think in the next few weeks maybe we'll talk about jellyfish.
Okay, I think that's fascinating.
But their tentacles can be up to meters, tens of meters long. So if you see them around, and somewhere's out there could be this big stringy
A lag behind.
Tentacle with its metacysts, which are the stingers that are
That's
on
what
there
get you.
That'll get you. And so they've been washing up on the beaches down in Topsail and here in Emerald Isle. Just a few years ago, I collected some for one of the researchers at Wake Forest in the chemistry department. He was doing work on them. You realize in that little balloon that they have on, which is their sail, and when the wind blows, it's in such a way they move about 45 degrees to the wind. But in that little balloon is a variety of gases, including carbon monoxide,
Really?
which they make, and inflate that little gas balloon that floats on top of them.
Why do they wash up?
Blown by the wind.
But so it's by. I mean, it's not by intent. It's by
They
accident.
just got.
They're in the wrong place, wrong time.
Weed, they blew up the same way the sargassum weed, just because they do.
Now, are they? Do they perish once they do that? In other words, they don't. The next tide doesn't revive them.
Not usually, and the nematocysts on their tentacles can last for a long time. Even though the animal is dead, or even though if it's disjointed from the Portuguese man of war, they can sting you for quite some time after that.
I think it'd be interesting to have a show about them and just what they eat, their habitat, and
I actually have my jellyfish file just in case.
And who eats them?
Oh, number of the turtles. Too.
Yeah, exactly.
And we talked recently about the big.
Well, I think that's the danger of the pollution in the ocean. Balloons,
big ocean
mylar,
sunfish. They eat them too.
the big sunfish. Yeah, but so they have a purpose out there.
Yeah. So
Part of the food chain.
and the other things out there, sea mullet were still a good bite, especially on the piers in the evening, at night, up till daybreak. And we're going to talk about pompano. Actually, before we get to the pompano, there was in the same family, the permit, which is a great game fish in Florida. 24-pound permit was caught at Cape Hatteras.
Really?
Last week, yeah.
A permit.
A permit.
Let's see what that looks
they
like.
They look just like a pompano, only bigger.
Okay. Did they taste as good?
I think they're good eating. Often people just use them as a game fish. They're a bit protected, but they're one of the game fish that you go down for if you're going for bonefish or pompano or permit. Tarpon, those are all game fish that people catch and release frequently.
They look like when the pictures I'm seeing now is when someone enhances on Photoshop when they catch like a little sunfish, they blow it up.
Well,
that's what they look like, but that's real.
Pounder.
Wow.
So they're a great game fish.
Yeah.
The other thing that's still maybe they haven't completely passed us by, but there are still some cobia being caught, and some of them, most of the ones that I've heard about, are all 40, 50, 60-pound fish.
Big
They
fish.
weighed a number of big ones at Chase and Tails, and a lot of them are being caught on not live shad, usually cut shad, cut menhaden, bottom fishing, and one of the good spots has been recently around Cape Lookout. So that's the fishing report for today, and the final. We go back for non-fish. We had our first 2 turtle nests in Emerald Isle
Fantastic. Good.
this past week.
I know they have at least one on hammocks or on Bear Island.
And
I don't know
they
if
had
any.
one up on in Pine Knoll Shores, and they've had a number in Topsail.
Well, I'll tell you, the turtles that are coming up on Bear Island, I can't speak for Emerald Isle because I haven't seen it as up close and personal as I have the other. But they have a lot of beach to work with this year, and last year as well they did, because Florence chewed a lot of the dunes away.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
they know how to go up to the high sand line there. They'll be in high cotton. 7:44. We'll take a break here and come back with more fishing report with Dr. Bogus. We're going to be talking about pompano. They are delicious. We'll find out how to catch them next.
The Real Outdoors in Emerald Isle has long been the favored one-stop shop for all things outdoors and on the water. But the hottest trend at the Real Outdoors is the coolest thing in fishing, boating, and even tailgating. The Real Outdoors now stocks the latest from Yeti coolers, the most sought-after cooler since the Ice Age. Yeti coolers are so efficient, you'd think they make ice. And the Real Outdoors is now your Yeti cooler headquarters, from the giant coolers to the incredibly popular Yeti tumbler. And of course, the Real Outdoors remains your place for top-of-the-line fishing gear at the best prices from the names you trust, like Penn and Shimano. And come to the Real Outdoors for all the clothing and accessories from Guy Harvey, Bimini Bay, and so many more. Everything that will help you look cool on the hottest of summer days. But don't forget, to keep everything cool, pick up the leader in coolers, the Yeti from the Real Outdoors, your complete inshore and offshore fishing center. The Real Outdoors, 7802 Emerald Drive, online at therealoutdoors.com.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
All right, every week we put together a digital life hack tip, and it's all designed to make things easier, to answer some probing questions that you might have. And I've noticed in my inbox that a lot of folks are wondering, what is the best browser to use? Because let's just face it, you got a lot of choices. So over at commando.com, we've decided to do the research.
The research is conclusive. The best time and place to listen to Kim Commando is right after Swap Shop, Saturday mornings at 11, here on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240.
Welcome back to our fishing report with Dr. Bogus, and we're talking about that delicious fish called the pompano. Oh no, the pompano. Oh yes.
Oh no, the pompano. Yeah, it is a really cool fish. It's a fun fish to catch, a very good one to eat. They are actually members of the jack and pompano family. They, which includes the pompano. You mentioned the permit.
Yeah, the big permit.
And we also mentioned other of the jack, the amberjacks, the crevel jacks, the blue runners, the bar jacks, and actually roosterfish, which people catch farther south and central and Latin America. Very popular fish. They're also in the jack family. And one of the ones that has come up recently that has been, people have seen them and hadn't seen them for a long time, something called a palometa. They are a jack, a pompano that has bars on them. They're smaller fish, and they have like vertical stripes on them. Almost, it's hard to describe. What it looked like is if you'd taken a pompano and put them on a hot grill.
Yeah.
And made those
the little marks. Yeah. The char marks. Char marks. Right.
That's really what it looks like. So if you catch one that looks like that, that's actually a palometa. And it's funny, one of the fish that in the same family, they get confused. People confuse the crevel jack with the pompano. In fact, there was a a couple years ago in the Jacksonville newspaper. They published a picture of a crevalle jack and called it a pompano. So that it's easy to mix them up because of that.
Well, it's nice they have the markings in there. I'm looking at that now on the screen here, so
Yeah.
it's already ready for the grill. You just place it on
see,
there.
It's not like a bar you see on a sheep's head or
Yeah.
a black drum or anything. It looks like a sear mark.
Sear marks on the grill. It's
from a
exactly what
grill.
it looks like. Yeah, that's
And
cool.
so if you find a pompano that looks like that, that's called a palometa. The record here in North Carolina, caught in 2001, 8.5 pounds, and that's a big pompano.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is a big
Usually you
pompano.
need a whole mess to have a meal with them, but that's a big fish.
Yeah, in general, you find them a half to a pound, although usually in early spring and early as you get to mid to late spring, you get some of the biggest ones. I've seen this year already fish that are 2, 3, 4 pounders.
Wow.
And those are pretty big. They only live about 3 or 4 years. And they grow pretty fast. If you're ever standing along the ocean beach, and you're casting a cast net along the ocean surf, looking to see what's in there or catch some bait. One of the things you find often are the baby pompanos.
Neat.
They're maybe 3, 4, or 5 inches, and you find them there frequently because they that's where they are usually found to live. They are found from Massachusetts all the way down to Brazil. They're also in the Gulf of Mexico. And the ones we have here are called Florida pompano because they come north from Florida in the summertime or the spring. And like I said, usually April is probably the time of year where we see some of the bigger fish. They have a fairly wide temperature range. They like 70 to 80s, but they can tolerate 65 to almost 90 degrees. So the 65-degree fish are the bigger, older ones that come north in the springtime when we see some of the big ones. Then late summer and early fall, we see, as they're going south, we also then see the south-going ones, the south-going Zacks.
Yeah.
We like to quote Dr. Seuss when we have a chance.
Absolutely. Can't get enough Seuss.
That's right. Can't get enough Dr. Seuss. So we've had some really nice ones. The biggest one I ever saw was caught with a live shrimp by a friend of mine on Bogue Pier, trying to catch a flounder, I think, from the pier. And that was about 4 1/4 pounds.
Wow.
He didn't have a net. He had to beach the fish.
Walk it off the pier.
Walk it off the pier onto the beach.
Is that typical when you catch a pompano on the pier? They typically you get familiar with your neighbors on the pier?
You absolutely get familiar. The first thing they do, they're a vertical fish, flat body, and they will run parallel to the pier. So if it's a small one, you can slow them down. If it's one that's 2 or 3 or 4 pounds, you may end up with braided line you didn't intend.
Yeah.
By the time you get them up on the pier.
Are they smart enough to run underneath the pier, or they stay out?
No, they tend to run just along the edge of the pier.
Good.
And they don't usually go under the other fish. The drum often try to get under the pier and break you up, but usually the pompano just run parallel to the pier. That's their body strength is running.
I remember a season many moons ago, a family came down and they caught a mess of pompano, but spot as well in the fall. Do they run with the spot?
Well, they don't run with the spot. They run around the same time as the spots.
Yeah, it was the fall.
Going south in the fall, and so that's why you find them together. Not only that, but they run in a similar area close into the beach. They eat about the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Worms, the sand fleas are probably the best baits. Shrimp. Those are the things you find right in the swash area of the surf there. Where you frequently find the pompano. They're mostly between that outer bar in the slough and into the beach area. And they've got, if you ever caught a pompano, they have little tiny mouths, little bitty mouths. And so you need really tiny hooks to catch them.
Yeah.
Mostly 4 to 6 long shank hooks because of those little mouths. Often the people put an orange bead on them. Now, we've mentioned this before. The orange is a good color because it holds up pretty well in the water. But also, the eggs underneath the sand fleas are that orange color, and that's a good energy fish, bait for these guys to eat. So they like that, and so that orange bead can attract them, mostly on either Carolina rigs or your standard 2-hook bottom rigs. The other hook that works really well is a circle hook. They are a hit and run fish, so that works real well with the circle hook because they'll hit, run, and get hooked.
Yeah.
Without having to set the hook, they will hook themselves.
Nice. Yeah, they have such tiny little mouths, but then their body just expands so quickly. It's amazing, how they were created, how they function out in the ocean.
Yes, they do. And I've had a friend that said, and I've heard this before. He was down in Florida in a boat near where there apparently were some pompano. They like to ride in the back of the wake of the boat. They'll be jumping up and down and swimming in the
Catch
wake.
us, catch us. We're back here.
Like
dolphin.
Like a dolphin.
A little
exactly.
dolphin. Yeah.
So that's a little unusual, but they do hit hard. So the circle hooks really well with that. What's the best baits? Well, shrimp.
Of
Fresh
course.
shrimp.
Who doesn't like shrimp?
Sand fleas. Yeah. Well, there ain't nothing out there that won't eat shrimp. just
Yeah,
about.
that's
Unless
right.
they're filter feeders, they will eat shrimp. It doesn't really matter. Sand fleas. Now, if anybody out there knows how to catch soft sand fleas, I've written about this, but I can't ever do it. I've written how, and I've gone on the beach and tried it because somebody told me how to do it. I can't catch I can't find a soft sand flea.
Where do you find sand fleas?
Right. In fact, they're very plentiful right now. They're right in that backwash on the beach.
Okay.
Where the wave comes up and then recedes, you will see them.
Yeah.
Actually digging back into the sand as they put up their little siphons and siphon the seawater. But I have looked and I've looked at what people told me how to look at the little spot that looks like a dollar and it's a dry spot in the sand because of the soft shell. I can't find them.
And all the times you've been out on the beach, you go out every day. You can't find one for 20 years.
I've given up looking.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Let's hold that thought right here. I want to come back so we have some time in our final segment here. If you know how to catch soft shell sand fleas, give Dr. Bogus a jingle. Call us here at the radio station 252-247-7282 or go on to the website ncoif.com. We'll be right back with our next final segment on our fishing report with Dr. Bogus. Stay tuned.
Excuse me, could you spare one of those delicious L's fries?
You're a seagull.
Yeah, I know.
You're a talking seagull.
Well, I figured I better speak up because, well, the food here at L's Drive-In is so great that most folks find it hard to part with. Have you tasted their shrimp burger or their oyster burger? Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I'm having an L Super Burger with all the fixings, some fries, and a cherry Pepsi. All their food here is fantastical.
I know, that's why I keep coming back to L's Drive-In, but it seems no one wants to share even a little bite with a poor hungry seagull.
I guess I could spare a fry or two.
Thanks. Hey guys, this lovely young lady is giving us some of her delicious L's Drive-In food.
Hey, wait a sec.
These are my friends, Katie Seagal.
Watch the hood there.
This is Steven Seagal and George Seagal.
Okay, here's another fry.
Oh, by the way, my name is Jonathan Livingston.
Really?
L's Drive-In, nestled in the old oak trees next to the hospital on Arundel Street in Morehead City. Remember, feed the seagulls at your own risk.
This is Lynn Creelo. Join me for Wine and Dine Radio every Saturday night at 8 p.m. right here on the Talk Station. Wine and Dine Radio is Eastern North Carolina's only local wine and food radio show. We talk about the passion of life, wine and food. Learn more about the show online at wineanddineradio.com or thetalkstation.com. Join me every Saturday night at 8 p.m. for Wine and Dine Radio right here on the Talk Station, first in wine and food.
We're talking about pompano, and Dr. Bogus, people may be curious, what are some of the artificial baits to use to catch that delicious little fish?
Yeah, you can use small spoons, little bucktails. They got small mouths, so you need small.
Think small.
Eighth ounce, eighth or 16th ounce baits. One of the ones, baits that we talked about some while ago, were the gold hook rigs.
Yeah.
The naked truth about the gold hook rigs.
Remember that?
Remember that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Often what people will do is put that orange bead either on the hook itself or just above the hook.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had a friend fill a cooler with just jigging those gold hooks off the pier and filling the cooler with pompano.
Wow.
I mean, that works really well.
See, I'd follow him home. Yeah.
Speck rigs tipped with a little bit of shrimp. They're small flies. A small gold spoons work well. Spoon flies work well, especially with the orange beads or the gold. Little bucktails, shad darts. If you finished up your shad fishing up on the Roanoke, the shad darts that you use, they're nice because the shad up there are pretty small too, and don't have real big mouths. And so those are frequently, and I've had friends land some big ones on Castmasters from the surf. I haven't, but I had a friend that caught one of them that was, I don't know, 3 pounds or so.
Wow.
Using a gold Castmaster.
Do they follow the pattern like many fish during the day when it's the light, the morning light, dusk light, or are they all day fishing?
They like the incoming tide.
Incoming tide.
Yeah, they're not so light sensitive as some of the other predatory fish, although they do eat small silver sides and that sort of thing, along with the worms and the little crabs.
So a high tide today's at 4:42. You'd be ideally out on the beach at what time to catch these guys?
A couple hours before.
Okay, like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. Very cool. Thank you, Dr. Bogus. If you want more information on Dr. Bogus, go to the website, www.ncoif.com, and you can find out all kinds of information on there, not only about pompano, but anything that lives in the ocean. It's on there as well. We'll do this again next Monday.